We've been asked. You've been asked. And now we have a place where you can watch it all. The Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively drama that all centered around this little movie called It Ends With Us. We started on Monday with episode 1. We are officially on episode 4. We just ended last episode around the first formal complaint then lawsuit by Blake Lively, where Kendall explained the ins and out of Blake's point of view and her lawsuit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about how everything was put out there. Then, of course, after that, Justin Baldoni's dropped from his agency WME. His co-host of his podcast leaves the show. Blake Lively's friends and co-workers come out in full force with support of Blake Lively. Things look really, really rough for Justin Baldoni. His lawyer hinted at it, but as of January 1st, a $250 million lawsuit is filed against the New York Times. It's not just Justin, it's Wayfarer Studios, it's Jamie Heath, the president of Wayfarer Studios, it's Steve Sarowitz, the main investor there at Wayfarer Studios. All the PR people associated with the original Blake Lively lawsuit are all suing the New York Times. They're suing them for libel, false light invasion of privacy, promissory fraud, and breach of implied in fact contract. So basically, hey, everything you said was all a lie, and here's all of our receipts for it. So within this 90-page lawsuit, they claim that the Times cherry-picked, sort of altered communications and, quote, stripped of necessary context and deliberately spliced and misled readers. They right away go, listen, you're a news publication. You need to give us time to counter whatever Blake Lively's people are telling you.
Yeah.
They allege you only gave us a 14-hour overnight window to respond to all of this. And then you didn't even do it. You published your story 2 hours earlier than you told us you were going to. I think they published it around 10 a.m. and they'd originally told Justin Baldoni's team, hey, you have until noon tomorrow to respond to this. From there, it goes through literally each and every claim, not just in this article, but in Blake Lively's lawsuit. So we told you yesterday all the things that she said. And like we mentioned, you can go to episode 3 to look at them all yourself. We're not going to repeat all of them.
Yeah.
But these counterpoints, you start going, once again, you start going, maybe they're not crazy for saying this is not harassment.
Yeah. It's a lot of, in every situation we've had is he takes something out of context and she takes something out of context and our heads go whiplash back and forth.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty wild. So here's a couple of the things that, again, you can read all of this, by the way, online. You can look at all these lawsuits yourself if you want to. I went through this entire lawsuit as well. And here's the couple that really stood out and that were also talked about in the press at the time. Wardrobe. Ooh, wardrobe. I don't know why it keeps coming back to the wardrobe, but she's a biggie. So this describes, in this counter lawsuit against the New York Times, describes how Blake slowly started taking over the wardrobe for her character, even though it had already been managed. They had a wardrobe person. They had it all figured out. They said she would not come in to try on the wardrobe or check it out, even though it was only 15 minutes from her house. They had to ship all the clothes to her, and it was such a pain in the butt that they finally were like, fine. Just take control of your wardrobe. It's fine. Well, those are some photos in that wardrobe that Blake picked out that were taken by the paparazzi. Leaks out. People are like, these are terrible clothes. So Sony gets mad at Justin Baldoni. They're like, what the hell are you picking out? People aren't going to come to this movie if they think it's stupid. Justin goes and talks to Blake, and he does admit, I did tear up during this conversation because it was really uncomfortable. And then she ended up complimenting me. That's his wardrobe. Hey, he said, she said.
Yeah,
I cried, but it wasn't this big messy thing. She's making it. And by the way, it's her fault that the wardrobe sucked. It's like what he's saying. So that also leads into how things started moving towards Blake trying to take the reins of the movie, which really isn't this lawsuit since it's against the New York Times, but it really lays the groundwork for his next lawsuit against Blake and Ryan and their publicist. It goes into the lifting scene, the rooftop rewrite, and Ryan Reynolds yelling. Mm-hmm. This is where we find out that Ryan had yelled at Justin at their penthouse, at Blake and Ryan's penthouse. Well, quote, other celebrities, and that's what it's called. He does not name any names. It's other celebrities were walking in and out of their apartment. We later found out Taylor Swift.
Fearless.
He had asked Blake's weight, Justin did, because they were doing a scene where she was going to run and jump and he would catch her. He alleges that he'd already practiced with a stunt double, but he wanted to make sure everything was good because of his back issues. He'd had a couple of slip discs.
You know what? I will say this just from that, because overnight, yesterday, when you said the weight thing, I made fun of this at the time, being like, yeah, he needed to figure this out. Well, you can approximate how much a human woman weighs.
You can.
And like, that's a little bit where you go, I think that was a bit much.
Mm-hmm. So she refused to do the scene. So that's why we never saw it, is what he's saying. Because she alleged that this scene didn't exist. And he said, well, yeah, because we cut it because you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Because she was saying, well,
no,
that you're asking. Yeah. You're asking for no reason the scene doesn't exist. And he's like, it actually did at one point.
Right. 100%. All this leads into eventually he goes, okay, you can start doing some rewrites. I'm still the director. I'm still the producer, but you can do some rewrites.
Which a rewrite is a big, concession.
It's a big deal.
That's a big concession to make, is you can rewrite a scene.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Like, that's pretty big.
Right. And we'll get to this, but we have seen the receipts of the conversations that happened after these rewrites. So another thing that's talked about in this lawsuit against the New York Times is the intimacy coordinator. We've heard about this a ton.
Yeah.
He has receipts that are in this lawsuit, these text messages and emails that say that Blake did not want to meet with the person. She was comfortable with Justin just doing it. It's not weird text. It's just like, nope, you go ahead. I trust you. You go ahead and do it. He would meet Blake and Justin would then meet at her house, where he basically just went with and whatever she wanted to talk about. Like he would direct it. He says he was responding with the word sexy because that came up in her lawsuit a couple times with her use of sexy. So she would say, I like the idea of this sexy beanie or this sexier look. And so he would say, okay, yeah, no, I think that is sexy.
Yeah.
He's saying, I wasn't saying it about her. I was saying it about Lily's character.
Or yeah, we know too that she was like, I think it's sexy when a guy and girl jab at each other or like, you know, have banter. And so like that would be how it would initially be brought up kind of thing.
So that's what he had to say about sexy, about intimacy coordinator, any of that. Then the November demands. Now, if you remember yesterday, after the writer's strike, they were able to start shooting again. And his team alleges that the day before things were set to resume, they get this out of the blue bullet points, 17 different demands from Blake and her team that she would not come back to the show if they didn't meet these demands. And they allege, like, listen, we had no idea where this came from.
Yeah.
We're like, well, we have to have her. We've spent millions of dollars on this movie. Like, she can't leave. So they agreed to meet in January, where then it became 30 different demands in order to keep the film filming.
Did she want out at this point, do you think?
I don't know. It becomes really clear, and that all of these were all in their words. And when I say clear, I mean clear for their suit, that this was all a slow manipulation of trying to take over the movie, which brings us to takeover. Started with the clothing, rewriting the scenes. They allege that she fired the film's editor and composer and started her own edits, even though Justin, as the director, continued doing his edits, because that's his job. She demanded producer credit and, quote, undeserved guild watermark, which I guess is a huge deal in the industry. Like, you don't just get that. You really have to work and earn your way toward that. When he and the team at Wayfair told her, like, we're not going to give you this watermark, she directly went to Sony and said, all the goodwill that is between us is done. I'm done with these people. I'm over this. He alleges then that that's how she started using her power to take him out of the film, because Sony knew she's the name. If she leaves and they're the ones who are distributing it, they're going to lose all this money.
Yeah.
Right.
And does Sony have deals with Ryan Reynolds as well? Is that
probably, possibly?
I couldn't remember who put out
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Well, that's Disney. That's Marvel.
Okay. So, because I remember there was another. Yeah. Okay.
So they basically said, like, listen, she then used her power with Sony to take him out of the film, including the marketing plan, the red carpet, which forced him and the Wayfair team to walk without the rest of the cast and sit in the basement, claiming she knew that people would start to go, why is no one trying to hang out with him? Like, spin the narrative to make him look like a bad guy. The receipts are endless. Absolutely endless. I know we got to go to break, but before we do, I'm going to give you the name of someone that is going to come up a lot in the future. Her name is Stephanie Jones of Jones Work. She is brought up in this suit, and she is the reason that we have so many things and leaked things that you go, why would Justin's team send the New York Times these emails and text messages? Stephanie Jones. I leave you with that. Stephanie Jones.
Stephanie Jones.
So Stephanie Jones of Jones Works, she's the former PR rep for Wayfair Studios. And they allege in here that she was fired for leaking stories to the Daily Mail by Wayfair. And ironically, they were stories that were a little negative about Blake Lively. And Wayfair is kind of setting the stage to go, we never said these terrible things about her. We actually fired somebody who did say bad things about her. Now, their new rep, Jennifer Abel, she's actually named in this suit too. She, at the time, worked for Stephanie Jones under Jones Works. So after Jones Works was fired, they said, hey, Jennifer, do you want to stay with us? Make your own PR company? Yeah, I do. Well, Stephanie Jones is like, give me your laptop, give me your phone, give me everything. So she had access to all these emails, all these text messages, and that is how they're saying the New York Times and Blake Lively in her original suit got all of these text messages as receipts. Because it wasn't someone internally, it was someone who had been fired by them.
Oh. So when
Stephanie
Jones left, she said, here, take this.
And they're like, listen, she's still ticked that we fired her. Rightfully so that we fired her, by the way, that she's now making it seem like she's cherry picking little things to send you guys to make us look like the bad guys. Really, she's just a bitter ex-employee. And that's where you're getting all your information. Fascinating. Because this whole time I've been wondering, how did they get all that info?
Yeah. And, a lot of that times, like, we're Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, they have this huge lawsuit going on. And after how many years, we finally got a deposition that says, hey, Brad Pitt, you have to disclose all the information around the cover up. And they still haven't because they're still fighting everything tooth and nail. So the idea that they all of a sudden just got this delivered is actually insane.
It's pretty wild. So this is the lawsuit against the New York Times. By January 16th, Justin Baldoni and team have also sued Blake and Ryan and their publicist. Let me see. Her name is Leslie Sloan, because, of course, she's the one who's been putting all this information out there. That is a 179-page complaint. There's so many complaints.
I might have half of it on my desk.
I know. And it literally says all the same things we're reading to now. Yeah. It is counterpoint to everything that Blake laid out, which you would expect in an argument, right? You read Blake's side, you go, I'm 100% on her side. You read Justin's side, you go, I'm 100% on his side. But that's what good lawyers do. And these two are going to pay excellent lawyers to do this work for them, right?
Yeah.
They are seeking this to the team that Blake originally sued, which is countersuing, are seeking $400 million in damages, civil extortion, defamation, false light invasion of privacy, breach of implied contract, blah, 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 blah. It's all the same things.
Yeah.
See point 1 and 2 to figure out what it is for. By the 21st, so just a couple of days later, that's when we get the video, the infamous dancing scene video that Blake originally said this was sexual harassment when Justin was talking to me as himself and not as the character of Ryle, where I was very uncomfortable in this dancing scene. He releases this video to go, look, this doesn't look bad, does it? You watch the video. Her team goes, thank you for putting this out there. This is literal proof of what we said he did.
They said, here's the smoking gun. And they both said, here's the smoking gun.
Yep.
And then if you go in the comment section, it is so polarizing, so divided. Oh my God, Blake was right. Oh my God, I knew that Justin was right. And I go, oh my God.
They both kind of say what you see in this video, but it's different point of view, but you see both of their points. Wild. By January 22nd, the very next day, Blake and Ryan have asked for a gag order over Justin's attorney, Brian Friedman, because he's been talking to the press like crazy at this point.
Yeah, almost.
Literally every day.
Yeah.
And they're saying that he was engaging in improper conduct, trying to gain public favor that could impact a potential juror in the future. But that's denied. By the 27th, the audio gets put out. That's that text message from what was that, Mike, 2 a.m?
Yes, I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning that we found out that she had been texting him back and forth. And then he left this long 6-minute message.
Which When you hear the audio message in itself, this 6-minute audio message, you're like, this is creepy and weird.
It's weird.
It's in the middle of the night.
It's weird.
Then you find out that they were texting right before then, so it's not like that weird. And then you find out like that's kind of just how he talks. Is like when we interviewed him.
I know, but it's weird.
So it's all around. That's just out there, okay?
I know, and it's so like I always have to put in the like what, and I always like apply our lives and our dynamics to, and like, can you imagine? I left you this long.
I wouldn't listen to it one.
I know you wouldn't.
It's me.
I know you wouldn't.
Like, girl, please. Hollywood's weird.
I would probably listen to it in the car because I'd be like, this is the only time I have time. And I'd be like, Kendall, like breathing heavy at me while I'm driving.
Like, I sound kind of sexy, though. You know what I mean?
I guess.
By the next day, the 28th of January, a trial date is set by a judge for March 8th of 2026. 2 days later. Now, this was kind of a big news, but it's really not. Let me explain this. So Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' attorneys asked for Justin Baldoni's lawsuit to be dismissed. Everybody made a huge deal out of it. All the papers were talking about, oh my God, they want the dismissal of the lawsuit. Well, they did it on January 30th because the judge that was assigned to the case said, you have to do this in order for the case to proceed.
Yeah.
You basically have to say either you agree that you should be getting sued
yeah.
or you don't think you should be getting sued.
It's
so
like,
they made a huge point out of it, but like it really was nothing. It was just following standard procedure.
It'd be kind of like the judicial system is if when you go to court and say guilty or not guilty and
it's
then
100%
fight
the same thing
going forward.
Yep. That happens. And by February 1st, they've launched Justin's team. In their note, we want to be transparent, has launched the lawsuitinfo.com. 168 pages of text, emails, a dated timeline of events from 2019, like we talked about, like Brittany told us about on Monday, all the way up to January 7th, where they claim Blake's team attempted to serve Justin's team while they were evacuating from wildfires. This was like this random thing that got thrown in there. I'm like, oh, like this like heart wrencher of Justin's team and their kids are trying to evacuate wildfires and Blake is such a terrible person. She's trying to serve us papers. There was this January 24th. We have digital timestamps proving the New York Times had her original lawsuit before anything was actually filed for a complaint. Like there's everything. It is a little unhinged, but you could argue it's very transparent. And in this website and in the New York Times lawsuit and in the Ryan and Blake lawsuit, there's a couple of different things that you can take and look at yourself that it'll show the New York Times article and the timestamps of different text messages. And it'll show them from Justin's team's point of view. Things like emojis are not included in, which give context, right? Like if somebody goes, oh yeah, you did a good job with rolling eye emoji, you know they're kidding.
Yeah.
Well, that rolling eye emoji wasn't always included in the New York Times article. Or the person responding wasn't included, and it clearly showed that they were being sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating. No matter how you look at it, either he looks really guilty on one side or she looks really guilty. There is no in between. It's just wild how much their countersuits and this website showcase that the receipts that were used by the New York Times and by Blake originally were not the same ones that Justin's team had.
Yeah.
It's like, we won't know until court.
Wow.
We won't know which one is real and which one is not, right? Like,
but I think that video, it just shows you an example of like, it's still, everybody thinks they're right.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're withholding information, like what they did with the emojis.
Yeah.
That's withholding emojis. That's withholding
That's cherry picking. That's out of context.
100%.
That's like cutting up that video into little
pieces.
pieces.
That is the lawsuit against the New York Times. It's like, listen, you cherry picked. That's libel.
Like, subscribe, comment, tell us what you want us to know. We have one more episode tomorrow, and we'll give you the rundown of where we are exactly right now.